The man travels through the gutter to swim out to safety. Or, the prison guard takes help from an inmate to save himself from the IRS. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today we will discuss a movie where an honest man is wrongfully accused of murdering his wife. So let's get started. The movie starts with the lead character Andy Dufresne, sitting in a car, loading bullets into a gun. Andy is later accused of killing his wife, and the man she cheated with. While Andy pleads for his innocence, the evidence and a strong motive highlight him as guilty. The judge charges him with 2 murders, and he is sentenced to life imprisonment in Shawshank Prison. The scene then skips to a parole hearing of a prisoner named Ellis Boyd Redding. Unfortunately, his request is rejected. Redding, referred to as Red in prison, handles inner smuggling and betting with other inmates. When Andy and some other prisoners enter the gates of Shawshank Prison, his presence intrigues Red. Andy is shown as a conserved individual, talking less to the people around them, but as time passes, he starts interacting with Red. The friendship starts when Andy asks Red to smuggle a small rock hammer for him. Red inquires about the purpose of requesting this item, so Andy answers that he would use it to carve rocks as his hobby. At first, Red doubts his intentions with a fear that he might be ordering something to help escape the prison, but after he sees the size of the hammer, he puts aside his thoughts, quoting that it will take 600 years for someone to dig a tunnel with that tool. Andy slowly starts bonding with Red and his other inmates. While Andy tries to remain calm and composed, seamlessly adjusting to life in prison, he gets under the eyes of a dangerous prison group called the Sisters, led by Boggs Diamond. Andy is physically and sexually assaulted by the Sisters, despite his endless struggles. One day the prisoners are asked to help in labor at the prison rooftop. Red discreetly sneaks in the names of his friends on the volunteer list and bribes the guards through the selection process. While the volunteers, including Red and Andy, mop the rooftop with tar, they overhear the prison guards and Captain Hadley talking about the taxes imposed on his inheritance money. Andy tries interrupting the discussion, risking infuriating Hadley. Hadley, taken aback by Andy's bold step, grabs him by the collar, about to throw him off the building when Andy speaks him out of it. Using his banking knowledge, Andy helps Hadley figure out how to eliminate all the taxes through the IRS. Hadley halts his actions and listens to what Andy offers. In return, he asks for some cold beers for the tarring volunteers to reward their hard work. The men then sit and relax under the open air, drinking beers and enjoying the brief moment of peace and freedom. Later at a movie screening for the prisoners, Andy requests Red to smuggle in a poster of the beautiful actress, to which he agrees. Later the same day, the Sisters try sexually harassing Andy again, but end up physically assaulting him to near death. Andy is sent to the infirmary, whereas Boggs is in solitary confinement. Upon hearing this, Red and his buddies decide to collect rocks as a gift for Andy on his return. On the other hand, Boggs is released from confinement, but is beaten to extreme injuries by Hadley. Boggs is moved to another place, and Andy returns to his cell with a gift of rocks and a promised Rita Hayworth poster. Warden Samuel Norton hears about Andy's genius banking skills that helped Hadley and visits him, covering it as a regular cell inspection. He sees him reading the Bible and lets him keep it. Norton assigns Andy the role of the prison assistant librarian. While Andy works in the library, many prison guards seek help handling their financial problems. Soon Andy expands his services as a financial advisor. He also starts handling the files and taxes of Warden Norton. Seeing the expansion, Andy requests funds to renovate and upgrade the library. He talks to the warden, who hears his request but suggests he write a letter to the authorities dealing with prison monetary funds. Andy starts writing to them weekly, hoping to receive an answer soon. Andy is hanging out with Red when an inmate informs them about a sudden unexpected occurrence in the library. Upon reaching, they see Brooks trying to kill another prisoner because he doesn't want to leave the prison. Andy and Red talk him out of the situation and calm him down. Brooks, scared of leaving Shawshank cells, is released from prison after serving 50 years. As he tries to adjust to the outer world, which has changed, he finds it difficult to live a normal life again. After days of solitude and depression, Brooks takes his own life. The news breaks in, and the inmates mourn Brooks's death. Red, however, justifies his actions, talking about how this prison has institutionalized many prisoners who couldn't adjust to the new normal life. One day Andy finally receives books and a reply from the authorities, since he had been writing them letters for 6 years. The guard leaves Andy with the books. Andy finds a copy of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro record in the pile as he goes through the boxes of books. He sneakily locks the room and office doors, puts the record on the music player, and plays it through the prison radio system so all the Shawshank prisoners can listen to the music. While Andy peacefully sits and enjoys the short-lived moment of peace, a furious Norton comes outside, threatening Andy to open the door. For the violation of the regulations, Andy is sent to solitary confinement. But when he returns, he tells Red and his buddies that the confinement was worth the mischief he committed. He then talks about how music helped him in the solitary cell, giving him a slight hope for change. The other inmates, who had spent years in the prison deprived of hope, disagree with Andy's claim. Andy expands the library as more funds come in, naming it under Brooks in his memory. The library develops to be one of the best prison libraries in England. With this, Andy also starts helping the inmates with their high school diplomas. Andy also applies to various charities and publishers to provide him with more books for the library. The Shawshank expansion and development have become news all around. Warden Norton leeches on this new promotion and introduces a service scheme that gets the prisoners to participate in public works that require labor. Norton soon starts accepting bribe money to get deals with contractors. He secretly assigns Andy to launder his money and deposit it in different bank accounts. Andy tells Red about the illegal work he has been doing for Norton under the fake identity of a man that doesn't exist. In 1965, a new prisoner, Tommy Williams, gets shifted to the Shawshank prison. The cocky young boy, charged with theft and burglary, leaves behind his wife and a kid, expecting to be reunited after his parole ends. Andy and Red befriend him, so Andy suggests Tommy continue with his high school diploma. After learning that Tommy never had proper schooling, Andy takes on the job and starts teaching Tommy daily. The lessons continue, and Tommy appears for his GED exam. Tommy inquires about Andy's presence in prison, after which things change significantly. Tommy realizes that the story of Andy's imprisonment matches perfectly with his former cellmate Elma Blatch's narration, who claimed to have killed a man and his lover, and the woman's husband got jailed for his crimes. Andy finds a new hope to get justice and prove his innocence, realizing he knows the killer. Andy reaches out to Norton for help regarding his issue, but Warden refuses to help. Andy mentions that he will never tell anyone about Norton's illegal finances, but this provokes Norton into sending him into solitary confinement. Andy receives news there that Tommy passed his GED exam, and gets very happy. On the other hand, Norton meets Tommy alone, and asks him if he'd willingly testify in court for Andy's innocence. Tommy agrees, but Warden flips on him and instructs Hadley to shoot Tommy to eradicate all the proof of Andy's innocence. Warden visits Andy in his solitary confinement cell, and informs him about Tommy's death, painting it as a lie that he was shot in an attempt to escape prison. Warden confronts him and warns that he will be subjected to much more difficult conditions if he stops the money laundering. Andy declines the offer, so Norton increases another month for Andy's confinement period by. After 2 months of solitude, Andy returns to the Shawshank cells as a changed man. He initiates a deep one-to-one conversation with Red, where he tells him about his wife and how his past life brought him here. Andy also mentions his dream of moving to Zihuatanejo, a beach town on Mexico's Pacific coast. He then instructs Red to do him a favor when he is released from the Shawshank cells, go to a farm in Buxton, where he proposed to his wife, and find a black stone under a huge old oak tree. Red was confused as to why Andy was saying all these things. His friends were concerned about Andy's behavior. Haywood told them about Andy borrowing a 6-foot-long rope, which worried them even more. The same night, Andy finishes his work for Norton and then walks to his cell all gloomy, while Red worries that Andy might take his own life. The next morning, guards come in for the daily roll call, but Andy never leaves his cell. Red fears that Andy killed himself, but the tables completely turn when they all find out that Andy just disappeared in thin air from the heavily guarded prison of Shawshank without any trace. Norton opens his shoebox in his office, only to see some old rugged shoes. Norton hears the alarm sirens and discovers Andy's escape. He orders Red into Andy's cell and inquires about the situation, but Red is oblivious, just like everyone else. The angry warden starts screaming, throwing Andy's things here and there. As one of the sculpted rocks penetrates through Raquel Welch's poster, they discover a tunnel dug through the wall behind. Things slowly start making sense. It is revealed that Andy had been digging a tunnel with a small hammer for the past 20 years. After Tommy's murder, he decided to escape on a stormy night to avoid being heard and caught. Andy had packed the proof documents of Norton's laundering scandal, a suit, and a huge rock in a plastic bag, tying it with his foot. He had crawled through the tunnel, reaching pipelines of the sewage system. With the help of the thunder sound, Andy broke the sewage line with the rock and further crawled a 500-yard-long sewage dirt pipe. Andy came out of the other end sighing in relief, victory, and freedom. The next day Andy disguises himself and visits all the banks in Portland with accounts named under Randall Stevens, withdrawing all the illegal money of Norton, worth $3,700,000. He also sends Norton's illegal activities evidence to the newspaper, polluting the image of Warden Norton. Arrest warrants are filed against Norton and Hadley for the corruption inside Shawshank Prison and murders. Norton rushes to his safe, where he kept all his documents, only to find a Bible that Andy had cleverly placed for the actual documents. The Bible was the same one which Norton had asked him to keep. When he opened the Bible, he saw a hammer carved in the pages, realizing that was where he had hidden the hammer all this time. The police, meanwhile, knock on Norton's office door to arrest him. But before Norton gets arrested, he shoots himself. After the grand escape, Red and other inmates miss Andy, talking about him and telling others about his great rebels. Red misses Andy and feels his absence all the time. Years later, Red's parole was finally granted. Like Brooks, Red, too, found it hard to adjust to the outer world. He, too, felt a similar way as Brooks did. But what kept him going was his promise to Andy to find the black rock under the oak tree in Buxton and get what's under it. Red finds the place Andy told him about. After searching, he finally finds the place and the oak tree. He lifts the black rock and finds a box underneath. Red opens it to discover some money and a letter from Andy inviting him to the town in Mexico that he had once mentioned. Red travels again to find his friend Andy. They finally reunite on the beach of Zihuatanejo on the Pacific coast.